continue the homestand that may put them out of the playoff race before it's all over with. They don't start hitting the baseball and pitching a little bit better. I got a guy here from Jacksonville, Florida, awaiting the Jags and the Ravens, and he calls Jacksonville home, but there's only one home for him, and that's here in the charm city of Baltimore. He left 36 years ago. I said, Sam Kavaris, how many years? Has it been 20? He said, no, 36. And I'm like, dude, you're like 37 years old, Sam. What's going on? Welcome in from Jacksonville, longtime sports director at WJXT down in Jacksonville, and he's going to give me some great restaurant recommendations and preview this football game. How's it been, old friend?
It's been going well. In fact, a while back, I walked into the press area at Augusta National, and the lovely woman running it looked at me and said in somewhat of a stage whisper, "Sam, do you realize that this is your 30th Masters?"
Wow.
And I said, "Martha, do you realize that you gave me a credential at 6 years old?" And everybody laughed. And when I got up, and then I remembered, wow, that's the kind of stuff they throw you out of Augusta for.
Right, exactly.
So I walked over, and she looked at me, and she goes, actually, that was very funny. I said, well, thank you.
Well, I would say for, all the years of doing this thing, I've been coming to Jacksonville for 20 years. I haven't been there since the Ray Rice night where he carried the ball 4 times and we lost on that. Beautiful. Everything was great about that night. The tailgate was great. We had a great party. We had a lot of fans. The flyover was it, and then the game started. But I'm hearing things about the stadium and seeing the pool and talking to Larry Rosen about his big televisions inside the stadium. And I think there's some promise there. But at 0-2, I wasn't expecting to see an 0-2 Jaguar team when I got there.
No, neither were anybody here in town, whether it's with the football team or with the fans. As they've said many times, the fans have outperformed the team because all the things that they've done, whether it's in ticketing or whether it is with the world's largest scoreboards or the pools or the renovations of the south end zone and the new construction of an amphitheater and an indoor practice facility outside the stadium in the south end zone along the river. All the things that Shad Khan has done has made it a really enjoyable experience. He totally renovated both the east and west clubs. So, because the stadium was 20 years old, as you mentioned, and he spent a lot of money, and he spent a lot of money on his football team. And the first week against the Packers, the Jaguars looked very competitive and looked like a team that could get some things done, and they ended up on the 13-yard line. I just thought it was terrible play calling and how they lost. But then this past week, they look like the same team that we've seen for 4 years, overmatched and ill-prepared. And that's why it calls into question not just the players, but the leadership of the team, whether it's Gus Bradley or Greg Olson or Todd Washington, the coordinators. They went to San Diego and just got pushed around, and the game was over basically after the first 2 drives.
Well, we were 3 touchdowns down 8 minutes into the game in Cleveland, and you got a veteran quarterback, you got some calm, you have better players. At least the Ravens did last week. Anybody has better players. They get on the field with the Cleveland Browns at this point, and then it's just, all right, how are you going to navigate this? Well, you're going to shut them out. You're going to score 25 unanswered points, and you're going to win the football game. We're going down this Jacksonville game. I look at the depth. I look at the players. I say they win the draft every year. The first hour, of the draft every year at 8 o'clock, they're drafting some Jalen Ramsey or, whoever it is, Fowler, and thinking, well, they're going to get better, and everyone likes Gus Bradley. I would say this, though. This is an on-watch game, right? Like a loss here and then a trip to London, and there could be a regime change here from what I understand because 0-4 would really be unacceptable around there.
He's not, Shad Khan's not the kind of guy to change coaches in the middle of the season. But the bye week does come up after game 4, as you mentioned. And, Nestor, there's 2 different things. There's performance and there's results. The Jaguars are 0-2 when it comes to results. They're 1-1 in performance. And if they can play the way they did against Green Bay, regardless of the outcome, then Gus Bradley is fine. If they play the way they did against San Diego in any one of these next 2 games, certainly, there will be a lot of talk about Gus Bradley and his grand experiment as a head coach, which has only ever worked in one place, and that's Seattle. And, he's a great guy. He's a great football coach. His philosophy as a head coach, though, is an experiment. He's trying to empower the players to hold each other accountable. There's no yelling at practice. There's no punishment or penalty. It's all very kind of calm and adult-like. And you have to have the right players, and certainly you have to have talented players for that. And if it doesn't catch, and when you go in the locker room, you can feel and you can hear kind of tremors of that being a big part of what this team is about. But the problem is that last week in San Diego, things started going south, and there was no veteran who stood up and put his foot in the ground and stopped that from happening. There wasn't any coach, because that's not the culture that they have, that just got all over somebody. So if you want to empower the players to hold each other accountable to do their job, then you have to have the right kind of players and the right kind of leadership. And if this doesn't go well in the next couple of weeks in terms of performance, not necessarily results, but performance, then Shad Khan's patience is wearing thin. He doesn't like to be embarrassed, and he's one of those guys who constantly, in every business that he has, and remember, he's about the 73rd richest person in America, in every business that he has, his philosophy is, I'm going to hire the best managers, I'm going to give them all the tools they need to succeed, and I'm going to give them time to do it. And when they don't, I'm moving on. He's unsentimental about that from a business standpoint. It'll be fun to be at the game Sunday, that's for sure, because it's been a great environment down there, and with probably 50,000 loyal Jaguar fans who show up, win or lose. There's still a buzz about the team where there'll be 65,000 people at the stadium. It'll be a fun environment. The Jaguars, the football team, needs to hold up their end of the bargain.
He is Sam Kavaris, long-time Jacksonville broadcaster, but a real Baltimore. Give everybody your background here with Vince Bagley and Chris Thomas and that whole era of sportscasters in the 70s, Randy Blair. I mean, all back down the line, you dreamed of being a Baltimore. You dreamed of being Vince Bagley, same as I did, right?
That's all I ever wanted to be. Actually, the guy I wanted to be was Chuck Thompson, and
I wanted to be John Stedman. Isn't that funny? Really, when it comes down to it.
John Stedman's brother lived two doors down from us in Woodlawn, and so there was a connection there. And I played all kinds of sports as a kid, and it's only funny because I tell people when you're growing up in Baltimore, when you're about 6 or 7, you have to decide between baseball and lacrosse.
Right.
That's where you have to, because they're the same season. And of course, Brooks Robinson was my hero, and Frank and that whole team. I can't believe they're letting somebody wear number 6, but that's a whole other story.
Right.
But nonetheless, I grew up in Woodlawn, went to Woodlawn Junior High, went to Woodlawn High School, and then graduated from the University of Maryland. So, it's in my blood. It's part of who I am, and every time I'm up there, I go to Atman's and and stand in line with everybody else and
get a Dagwood.
And exactly, and the guy in front of me, last time I was in there last year, guy in front of me grabbed I tell this story at banquets all the time, and I talk about what kind of town Baltimore is, because my parents have always said that Jacksonville reminds them of Baltimore, 40 years ago. I'm standing in line at Atman's. The guy in front of me reaches over, and you know how skinny it is, and he just reaches over to the rack and he grabs one of those, not big, but medium bags of Utz potato chips. And he's standing there, and he opens it and he eats it. He's still waiting in line, and he turns around to me, African-American guy, and turns around to me and offers me some, and we struck up a conversation. I said, that happens in Baltimore. That doesn't happen in D.C. or, Philadelphia or New York. That doesn't happen. And that's the kind of stuff that happens in Jacksonville. That doesn't happen in Orlando or Atlanta or Tampa. In both cities, the people who live there are perfectly comfortable living in their own skin, in their own environment, and we don't want to be anybody else. And that's kind of the thing that makes both of these towns unique.
Love having Sam Kavaris on the show. I should invite him on even when the Ravens aren't playing the Jaguars. 36 years down in Jacksonville. You can follow him out on Twitter at Sam Kavaris. That's Kouvaris from the West Side. I mean, this is West and East getting together. Dundalk and Woodlawn talking about the Ravens and the Jaguars. All right, let's get on to the field here, Sam. Blake Bortles, right? All starts with him and probably starts with that offensive line. And I know you're going to be without the left tackle this week and moving Joko back probably. In order for this thing to go right, you got to run the ball, and in order for it to go right, the quarterback has to have some kind of protection.
Well, starting with Bortles, the whole team's got to play better. Bortles probably played the worst game I've ever seen him play against San Diego. I mean, he was horrible. And the only good thing about him being horrible, and you've dealt with guys like this before, he admits he was horrible. It's not like he'll kind of slough it off away. No, he'll say, I was terrible. And
Flacco's great about that. Flacco is completely, and it's not because he's got a ring or he's decorated. When he stinks, he'll just say, I don't know what the hell I was thinking there, literally.
Right. And that's exactly the kind of guy that Blake is. And that's what you need to be when you're playing at that level and dealing with other elite athletes as your teammates. So he's got to play better. I think the offensive coordinator needs to give him some better options. Against Green Bay, I didn't like the options at the end of the game. And you can tell Bortles is still in that development phase. It's his third year in the league. It's his second year in this offense. But he now, instead of going to his Pro Bowl wide receiver, Allen Robinson, if he's single covered, he'll check down and dump it off to T.J. Yeldon because he knows that's the safe throw out there in the flat. So they need to get him to take a few more chances early in the game with Robinson and Hearns, Mercedes Lewis, obviously, and Julius Thomas. Those are kind of the key things early in the game to get those guys involved. I mean, Robinson is their best player. He didn't touch the ball until the second half. That's not part of the game plan that's going to work. And up front, I don't know what they're going to do with Kelvin Beachum. Obviously knocked out in the game last week or just dinged in the head, and everything turned out to be negative. So if he's not in the concussion program, which they didn't announce this week, he may play. But if not, they may. I was surprised even last week, Nestor, when he went out of the game, they left Joker at tackle at guard, and they put this guy, Patrick Omame, at left tackle. So I don't know if they're absolutely sold now on Joker is our left guard and that's where he's staying, or they're willing to swing him out there because he did play very well there in the preseason and put somebody like Tyler Shatley or Patrick Reed in there at that left guard position. But they haven't run the ball well. Chris Ivory hasn't been a part of it. He was a big free agent acquisition in the offseason. So they do have to run the football some. And it sure would be nice because they're more effective when they run tempo offense than anything else. But they haven't started any kind of game with that idea. But look for that this week. That Bortles plays better. They run some tempo. They try to run the football, and if they do, they'll probably try to run it over the right side of the offensive line.
Sam Kavaris joining us here from Jacksonville, talking all things Ravens and Jags as he celebrates 36 years down there at the beach and giving me restaurant recommendations for my one glorious day in the sun this week in Jacksonville. Everyone's going to be watching Jalen Ramsey, right? And I guess the reputation is the kid's special. If you start throwing the ball in his direction, we'll find out if he's special. But I'm hearing incredible things, and I know how badly the Ravens would have liked to have had him.
He is one of those generational kind of athletes. He's a big guy who can run in all directions, and as you know, probably more important, the difference between him and any other cornerback is that he's more than willing to come up and set the edge and take guys on. He doesn't just want to be known as a cover corner, and he likes that. He was that way in college as well. You'll see him. He looks freakish out there because he's so much bigger than everybody else who plays at that position. Mark Brunell, I did the preseason television with Mark Brunell, and Mark said usually it takes 2 or 3 years for guys to figure out how to play in the NFL, and for really good players, it usually takes 2 or 3 months. He said for this guy, it took about 2 or 3 weeks to figure it out, and supposed to look like. There's a lot of soul searching going on in Jacksonville about who's playing and how well they're playing. That's for sure.
He is Sam Kavaris down in Jacksonville talking all things Jags and Ravens. All right, man, I know you got a lot of Oriole blood in you. I know you've been monitoring this. I know you know my history. By the way, today, it was 10 years ago today that we did Free the Birds and did the walkout on Angelo. So,
No kidding.
10 years ago today.
10 years
So,
ago.
and I know you're familiar with that. And 10 years later, they are in the only pennant race, like a real race, where they're playing games in September where it's on and the chase is on and they're three. It's the first time in our generation. Now, in 12, they were kind of coming from behind and no one really believed. In 14, they ran away. There was no pennant race at all. This is a little different, and no one's going to the game, Sam, and I know you see it. I know you see it from afar. I know you watched the riots from afar a year and a half ago. I know you know the white flight, and you're watching what's happening politically in this country as well. This is an unbelievable thing to see them play games like this with a pitcher like Gosman on a Tuesday night and have 15,000 people in the ballpark and 7,000 or 8,000 of them are Red Sox fans. It's alarming, except for the fact that the old man still made $3 billion off of this transaction, and he doesn't really care whether anybody goes or not.
Right, and that's, we were familiar with that and watching that in football in Tampa Bay. Nobody went to their games, and, it didn't seem to concern the ownership at the time. The team was owned by a guy from Jacksonville, Hugh Culverhouse, because, as a businessman, he made plenty of money, and he wasn't concerned about, ticket sales and fan base and all that, because it's not where any owners make their money these days because of the television contract. And, Angelos has such a bad reputation among the fan base that it's going to be difficult to rebuild that as long as he holds the ownership. And is it true that they stopped selling National Bow at Camden Yards?
That is correct,
for
yes.
a while?
Yes.
They actually did that.
Yes.
I heard that. I thought somebody was pulling my leg.
No. They didn't pay enough. That's what Look, man, this thing, everything about this is a reflection of him for any intelligent people. And, I see this on the internet. The people that they have left who buy the Kool-Aid. It's one thing to say, all right, the owner's a jackass, but I love baseball, and it's only $20, and I go 10 times a year, and, I invest $500 a year in Oriole baseball. I give them, another $300 at the concessions, and I eat across the street, and, I go get a steak at Roost Chris before, or whatever your thing is, I get that, but it's a whole different thing to say that the team's been well run, and that the people have been well treated, because that's just a lie. Everyone has been mistreated. They were in last place for 15 years, and he didn't care about it then. The Mike Flanagan thing, the John Miller thing, the Davey, the way I've been treated, quite frankly, the way my family's been treated, the way my business has been treated. Everyone that I talk to in the business community has a bad story. Well, I've had bars get letters from the Orioles telling them that they're not allowed to have an Oriole logo in their bar. Like, literally, that legal letters, legal C&D, take that off the wall. That has our logo on it. You can't put it on the wall here. Literally, that's happened, Sam. I can't fathom that when you get something like that, and you've been an Oriole fan since 1972, like I have, that you're going to feel good about that.
Well, I thought you hit right on it. Everybody you talk to has a bad story. It's not hit or miss. Everybody you talk to, particularly in the business community, has a bad story about that. And that's a shame because I was just visiting my brother in Detroit, and, the Tigers are kind of in this wild card thing.
They think they are.
Yeah, they think they are, exactly. And when you live in a baseball town, it's a baseball town first. I know people are Ravens fans. In Detroit, people follow the Pistons, and they follow the Lions, but they're Tiger fans, and then next thing they do is wait for the Red Wings to start. But they're Tiger fans first. They're on the golf course. You hear everybody's phone going off on every pitch with the app that gives them balls and strikes and pitching changes and everything there is to do. They know everything there is to know about Justin Verlander. they know everything there is.
They
to
follow
know.
the sport. That's the thing that's gone here, Sam. Like taking phone calls now from people talking about what's going on in Norfolk or who they're drafting or other teams and trade. That doesn't exist here. That's gone, Sam. Like I've done this for 25 years. If I had to sit here and take intelligent phone calls on baseball, I'd be waiting a long, long time, man.
Yeah, and that's really a shame because it was part of the fabric of what held the city together.
Oh, no doubt about it.
one of the things that's causing some of the dichotomy of social structure there is the lack of that one thing that held everybody together. And so it's just a shame. Everybody does have a bad story. I've got friends who have a bad story, and I don't even live there. And to distill it down to, really, you're not going to sell National Bow? Come on.
Sam Kavaris getting his Baltimore going here. That being said, we'll see you on the weekend. I'm looking forward to getting down to Jacksonville. I know. What do you love about Jacksonville? Other than that living there, is it the sunshine? I mean, you've made a whole life, 4 decades down there. You've seen that place grow, and I said this to Larry Rosen, who's been down there 36 months, right? I said no one ever goes to Jacksonville and says it sucks and I want to come home.
Yeah. The lifestyle obviously is there, but one of the attractive things is the people. A lot of towns you can move to, and they're very provincial about who they allow to be successful. But here, I found, and I think it continued to be part of the culture here. If you come here, you work hard, you get involved in a charity, you make some friends, you're accepted as part of the community. There's a lot of places that's not the case. You're allowed to be successful here based on your own merits. And I think that's one of the special things that Jacksonville has always had. And the things, the changes that have been made here, whether it's to get rid of the paper mill and the chemical plant or the tolls or the traffic issues, all of those things, it's a city made up of people who want to do things, not just stay with the status quo. And I think it's always been attractive. The lifestyle is just phenomenal. There's a couple of hot months, but it's cold in Baltimore sometimes too. So.
Hey man, we'll see you this weekend. Thanks for the love. Always appreciate the visit. We love having you on the program, Sam.
Thanks, Nestor, as always.
You got it, Sam Kavaris. You can follow him out on Twitter at Sam Kavaris, Kouvaris. 36 years now down in Jacksonville, but a Baltimorean, and he'll be following all things Ravens and Jaguars on Sunday for WJXT in Jacksonville. I'm covering it for WNST. You can find me, Nasty, at WNST.net, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, anywhere the internet is served, including Facebook Live and our YouTube, WNST TV channel, where we stream around the clock whenever we get in the mood to talk about sports. It's there. Whenever you're in the mood to listen, it's in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day. Simple download. You can podcast, listen when you want, where you want, take it with you to your mobile device. It's how the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault rolls. The morning newspaper reaches your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning, and that is powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. Still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life there. And last but not least, breaking news happens first on the WNST Tech Service. That's brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.